in the heart of a village where laughter carried. Like drumbeats and secrets flowed like river water. There lived a girl whose neck touched the sky. They called her Giraffe Girl. Not with kindness, but with mockery sharp enough to cut skin. The children giggled. The women whispered. The men stared. And every time she bent to fetch water, the world seemed to bend with her. But what they didn't know was that the same neck they laughed at would one day rise above them all. This is not just a tale. It's a warning, a wonder, and a whisper passed down from fire circle to fire circle. You may mock what you don't understand, but fate always listens. Now, listen closely. The girl with the long neck has something to show you. In the green cradle of Nonsoke, where the trees wore their leaves like crowns and the earth smelled of rain and roasted yams, babies were born as blessings. Every child was a drumbeat added to the rhythm of the village, a melody of laughter, crying, running feet, and future dreams. But when Nello was born, the rhythm faltered. Her mother, Mama Yugo, pushed through hours of pain. The women gathered around her hut, whispering prayers and singing low birth songs as the midwife shouted for more water, more cloth, more strength. Then finally, a baby's cry sliced the air like a new dawn. But the air quickly thickened with silence. What is this? The midwife gasped, taking a step back. Nello had a neck so long. It curled slightly in the midwife's arms, soft and delicate like a vine reaching for the sun. Her face was beautiful, her skin rich and warm like the evening soil. But that neck, that strange, stretched neck, made the women cross themselves and murmur to the gods. Mama Yugo looked upon her daughter and smiled weakly, tears in her eyes. She is mine. Long neck or not, she is mine. The midwife tried to hide her unease. You must keep her inside for now. Let's not invite questions before answers. But questions would come. And so would cruelty. Nello grew fast. By age 6, she could balance calabashes of water on her head, like any other girl. Perhaps even better. But her neck only grew longer. Like a tree that refused to be stunted, it stretched gracefully toward the sky, making her look both regal and strange. At first, the villagers only stared. Then came the whispers. Why is her neck like that? Did her mother offend the gods? She looks like a giraffe. Children began calling her Effine Kita, a mix between giraffe and beast. Boys laughed behind trees. Girls giggled as they walked past her. And the adults, instead of correcting their children, looked away and sighed. Every day, Nello would walk to the river with a metal bucket and her bright, patterned wrapper tied tightly around her waist. She kept her head down as best as she could. But how do you hide a neck like that? One day, a group of children followed her. Hey, long neck, do you drink water from the clouds? One boy shouted. Another added, careful. If you bend too low, you might tie your neck into a knot. The laughter burned hotter than the sun. Nello clenched her jaw, dipped her bucket in the stream, and walked back in silence. She could feel every stare, every snicker, every cruel smirk on her back like a swarm of mosquitoes. Obika was the worst. Handsome, fast, and full of pride, he was the village's golden boy. He could climb the tallest palm in seconds and was already leading the young hunters by age 12. But Obika had a sharp tongue and no fear of using it. One evening, as the village gathered by the fire to hear Elder Omenka tell stories, Obika saw Nello slipping in quietly with her grandmother, Mama Nena. He nudged his friends and whispered loudly, "Careful, everyone! The giraffe might block the stars tonight." The children erupted with laughter. Even some adults chuckled behind their wrappers. Nello's grandmother put a firm hand on her shoulder, keeping her from running. "Sit still, Nello. Do not bend to them." Nello blinked away her tears. "Why do they hate me, Mama?" "They don't hate you. They fear what they don't understand. That night, Mama Nena gave her granddaughter a bowl of hot pepper soup and sat beside her outside the hut. "Your neck is not a curse," she said. "It is a sign." "A sign of what?" "That I am not normal." Mama Nena stirred the fire. When the gods send something different, they always send a reason too. You just haven't found yours yet. Nello didn't believe her. She had heard too many cruel words, seen too many cruel stares. "Maybe the gods made a mistake," she whispered. Mama Nena looked at the stars. "The gods don't make mistakes. People do." 2 weeks later, an old man appeared in the village. No one knew where he came from. His robe was dusty, his staff taller than he was, and his eyes, clouded with age, still seemed to see everything. He sat by the fire that evening and asked for water. Nello, quietly seated in the shadows, brought it to him without hesitation. The man took one look at her neck, smiled slowly, and nodded. "You will see farther than they ever will," he said. Obika laughed again. "See farther? She can probably see the next village." The elder frowned. "You laugh now, boy. But when danger comes and you cannot see it, pray she is still willing to help you." The villagers murmured. Obika scoffed, but Nello said nothing. She just walked away, her neck held tall, tears waiting for the quiet of night. One morning, while washing clothes by the river, Nello saw something unusual, a shimmer in the forest. Like the trees were breathing. A wind brushed her skin, and she heard a whisper. "Come." At first, she thought she imagined it. But when she blinked again, a small figure stood between two large trees on the other side of the river. A hunched woman with hair like dry roots and eyes that looked both ancient and young. Nello felt her feet moving on their own. The bucket clattered behind her. She stepped across the water, heart pounding. "Come," the woman said again. "You are more than they say." The river behind Nello whispered like 1,000 tiny drums. The breeze tugged gently at her wrapper as she stepped across the shallow stream, the cool water brushing her feet like nervous fingers. Ahead of her, the hunched woman stood still, half-shadowed beneath the canopy of trees. No one ever crossed this far. It was said that the other side of the river belonged to the spirits. Hunters avoided it. Children were forbidden to play near it. But Nello, mocked and outcast for most of her life, had never felt fear the way others did. What could the forest take from her that the village hadn't already stolen? The woman turned without a word and walked into the forest. Nello followed. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. The trees seemed taller than normal. Their trunks curved slightly inward, as if they were bowing to the old woman. Birds chirped in rhythms Nello didn't recognize. Flowers bloomed in colors she'd never seen. Deep blues, glowing reds, purples that shimmered like moonlight on water. Finally, they arrived at a clearing. In the center stood a hut made entirely of woven vines and leaves. Smoke drifted from its tiny chimney, though there was no firewood in sight. The woman stepped inside, and Nello, cautious but curious, stepped in after her. The interior was surprisingly large, wider than it appeared from the outside. The air smelled of herbs and wet earth. At the center of the hut stood a wide wooden bowl filled with clear water that shimmered with light. Above it, a tiny bell hung, unmoving but humming softly. "Sit," the woman said, pointing to a mat. Nello obeyed. The woman poured something from a gourd and handed it to Nello. It smelled sweet but sharp. "What is this place?" Nello finally asked. The woman looked at her for a long moment, then answered, "A place where questions meet their answers." "You were born with a gift," the woman continued. "Not a curse. The gods shaped your neck to see what others cannot, to stretch beyond limits. You've only seen pain, but I see possibility." Nello frowned. "Possibility? Everyone laughs at me. I can't go anywhere without being mocked. Even the elders say nothing. Only my grandmother sees me. Then she sees truth. And that is rare. Nello stared into the glowing water bowl. Her reflection stared back. Same tired eyes. Same long neck. I don't want to be different, she whispered. You don't get to choose what you are, the woman replied gently. But you can choose what you become. She stepped closer and placed a hand gently on Nello's shoulder. I can show you how to use what you have. That the path is not easy. You must earn the blessing you carry. Nello met her gaze. What do I have to do? The woman smiled. The woman explained that Nello would face 3 tests in 3 days. Each test would challenge a different part of her soul. Her kindness, her courage and her wisdom. Only after completing all 3 would she understand the purpose of her gift. That night, Nello slept in the vine hut. Her dreams filled with strange whispers, dancing shadows, and a voice that sounded like her grandmother's saying, "Rise taller than their laughter." The next morning, the first test began. The old woman led her to a twisted, gnarled tree near a silent pool. Its bark wept a clear liquid like tears, and its branches hung low, almost touching the ground. You must sit by this tree until you hear its cry, the woman said. For how long? Nello asked. As long as it takes. And then she vanished. Nello sat. The sun rose high, then dipped low. Insects buzzed. Her stomach rumbled. Her neck ached from holding her head upright. Still she waited. Just as the moon began to rise, she heard it, a soft whimper. She leaned closer. A small bird had fallen from a branch, its wing broken. It chirped weakly beside the crying tree. Without thinking, Nello tore a piece of her wrapper, dipped it in water, and gently wrapped the wing. She placed the bird back on the branch and whispered, "You're not alone." The tree stopped weeping. The woman reappeared behind her. You listen not with your ears, but with your heart. That is kindness. The next day, the woman led Nello to a narrow path shrouded in shadows. Thorns lined both sides. Fog crawled across the ground. In there lies your fear, the woman said. Face it. Walk through alone. Nello stepped into the path. Every shadow seemed to reach for her. Voices echoed around her. The same cruel words from the village. Repeated and twisted. Long neck. Giraffe. You don't belong. But this time, she didn't shrink. She kept walking. Then, from the fog, a beaker appeared, or something that looked like him. His smile was cruel. You think you're special now? He sneered. You're just a freak. Nello's hands trembled, but she stood tall. I don't have to believe your voice anymore, she said. Mine is louder now. The image vanished. The fog lifted. The thorns parted. The woman appeared again. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to move anyway. The final test brought Nello back to the glowing bowl of water in the hut. The woman placed both hands on the rim and chanted softly. The water swirled, showing visions. Her mother crying. Her grandmother growing older. The villagers laughing. And Nello's younger self hiding in the dark. Then the woman asked, if you could become normal, neck like everyone else, would you? Nello stared at her reflection. No, she said finally. I used to want that. But now I know this neck isn't a mistake. It's mine. And I'll grow into it. The water glowed gold. The woman smiled for the first time. Then your gift is ready. The next morning, the woman led Nello back to the edge of the forest. She placed her hand gently on Nello's neck. You will see farther than any hunter. Hear danger before it calls. Your sight will stretch beyond hills, beyond rivers. But your greatest power is not your neck, it is your heart. A bright wind rushed around them. Light circled Nello's body. When it cleared, she looked the same, But she felt different. Lighter, stronger, wiser. Back in the village, things had begun to fall apart. The river had started drying. The crops failed faster than expected. Strange noises were heard at night. The elders were worried, but no one had answers. Mama Nene sat by her hut, staring at the forest, whispering, "Come home. Nello, they need you now." And in the distance, very far off, someone was walking toward the village. Neck held high, eyes glowing like sunrise. The sun was just peeking over the hills of Nwansok when the children saw her. "Nello?" One boy whispered, eyes squinting into the light. "No," said another. "That one is taller. She looks like a spirit." But it was her. The girl with the long neck. The one they mocked. Only now, her presence stilled the air. Her steps were soft. But her arrival made noise. Not through sound, but through awe. She wore the same wrapper. Her skin held the same color. But something had changed. The way she walked. The calm in her eyes. The sky itself seemed to shift for her. By the time she reached the square, every mouth was closed. Even Obika, leaning lazily against the well, stood upright. Mama Nena burst into tears. "My child," she said, arms trembling. Nello embraced her tightly. For a moment, the village watched a reunion wrapped in silence. Then someone shouted, "Look!" A cloud of dust curled at the far edge of the land, just beyond the cassava fields. The hunters hadn't returned in days. No messenger had come. The crops were browning, and the river had shrunk to a timid trickle. But now, something else was coming. A band of strangers. Armed. Not traders. Not visitors. Their footsteps were steady, and they carried spears with blood-colored flags. Panic rippled through the crowd. Mothers grabbed children. Elders murmured prayers. Men reached for machetes they hadn't sharpened in months. Nello stepped forward. "I can see 20 of them," she said calmly. "How do you know?" Someone asked. "They're still a mile away." "But I see them clearly," she replied, pointing with one long arm. "And they don't come in peace." Obika scoffed. "You expect us to believe that just because you—" "Silence," barked Elder Omenka. He looked at Nello, eyes wide. "What else do you see?" Nello closed her eyes. Her neck tilted slightly, like a sunflower reaching for a new sun. "There's a dry gully behind them," she said. "If we move now, you can block it with the fallen palm trunks. It'll cut their path. Delay them." "How do you know this?" another elder asked. "Because I see what you don't," Nello said simply. It was strange, watching the girl they mocked now leading them. But fear is a quick teacher, and desperation listens faster than pride. Men ran to gather trunks and rocks. Women prepared herbal repellents and boiling water. Obika, still half doubting, followed Nello quietly as she directed the others toward the high ground. At the riverbank, Nello paused. Her neck stretched once more. "They've slowed. They're confused. We have time." And for the first time, Obika didn't laugh. He stared at her with something else. Not just respect, but shame. "You were right," he said softly. Nello glanced at him, a small smile touching her lips. "It's not too late to stand tall, Obika." By midday, the intruders arrived. But instead of the soft village they expected, they found obstacles, barriers, and villagers standing together, ready. Nello stood at the front, her height unmistakable. The leader of the strangers stepped forward. "Move or fall." "We will not move," Elder Omenka declared. "We're not alone," Nello added, her voice like wind through trees. The stranger laughed. "You? A girl with a giraffe neck?" But behind her, the villagers didn't laugh. They stood with her, even Obika, machete in hand. The moment tensed. Suddenly, A loud cracking sound echoed from the forest behind the intruders. The traps Nello had advised, old logs tied to vines, had fallen just as planned, blocking the strangers' exit. From the hills above, a line of hunters emerged, finally returned, encircling the strangers from behind. The leader looked around and saw what he had missed, what Nello had seen. He dropped his spear. The others followed. After the dust settled, the village gathered. Some cried, some prayed, but all of them looked at Nello with new eyes. The same boys who threw stones now bowed their heads. The women who once whispered behind her back now wept openly. And Abika stepped forward, dropping to his knees. "I was cruel," he said. "I'm sorry." Nello looked at him, long and steady. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I needed your respect, and I'll accept it now." Then she turned to the crowd. "You all feared what was different, but the same neck you laughed at saved you." Silence. "And yet, I still belong to this village. I won't turn my back. But remember this day. The gods don't make mistakes. People do." Time passed. The river flowed full again. The crops bloomed brighter than ever. And whenever danger came, a broken bridge, a sick child, a lost hunter, Nello saw it before anyone else. People came from other villages to hear her speak, to learn from the girl whose neck touched the clouds. She became known not as Giraffe Girl, but as Nello the Seer. Her neck was never shortened. It remained long, proud, graceful. And one day, when her grandmother passed on peacefully, the village gathered under the moon to crown Nello as keeper of the watchtower, the one who sees before others even think to look. And so, by every fire in every village, mothers now tell their children, laugh at no one for being different. For what looks strange today may save you tomorrow. Because once in Norsuk, there was a girl they called Giraffe, and when the sky bowed low and danger approached, she stood tallest.